I was in Los Angeles last week, where the billboards are just enormous. I mean, they leave you short of breath. I mean, it's a very surreal experience. Particularly me, I think. It's a very surreal experience looking up at yourself 10 stories high, looking down at yourself, thinking, this is surreal. Why is there a big picture of me there? And then, you know, and I explained this to my brother recently, and he goes, Ben, it's not you. It's Caspian. It's a character. Like, you shouldn't feel weird about it. And I was like, yeah, good point. He's so much smarter than I am.
How old is your brother?
23.
Oh, you're younger, brother.
But he's got his head on his shoulders.
Does he look like you?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. He'll probably try to pass them off as him then.
He'll what?
He'll probably try to pass the picture off as him.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Tell me about this movie. There's romance, there's sword fighting, there's swashbuckling, there's horses. Was it a great blast for you when you saw it for the first time last night? Tell me your reaction. Yeah,
you know, I was totally exhilarated. I still can't really even say how I feel about it, because everything that happened reminded me of something, you know, an experience of filming it, or, you know, a particular moment of excitement when I walked onto the castle set for the first time, or something that Andrew said to me in an intimate moment or whatever. Like, it just, everything reminded me of something, and you know, I'm going to need to see it again to, yeah, you get the full experience. It's very hard to suspend your disbelief when you're watching yourself, though, as well. So I find it really hard to watch myself, but everything else was really actually surprising to me. There was a lot of dialogue that had been rewritten for the animated characters since I'd last, you know, read it, and you know, some of the really, it was much funnier than I thought it was going to be too. So much funny stuff that I wasn't there for. It's just lines that were just thrown away that were great. I really enjoyed it.
Good, and I think people will too. You're an awkward, kind of reluctant sort of prince in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know about awkward, but reluctant certainly. I mean, he's quite earnest, and because. Necessarily so, I think, because, you know, he's been orphaned. He hasn't had a real sort of parent figure in his life. He's the only young Telmarine we see in the whole movie. You know, they're all these kind of faceless, you know, masked, you know, soldiers, basically, and then my uncle, who's obviously a tremendous villain. So he's the only young Telmarine you see, so you can't really get a picture of his background, but you assume that he's been sort of, you know, hidden away in this castle and basically unloved and uncared for, you know, until, except for by his, you know, professor, and earlier on in the book version, his nurse. But he's sort of thrown out into the world, and he's chased away, and people are trying to murder him all the way through. You know, which is kind of a terrifying place to be. And then he has the catharsis of having to try and fight against his own people too, which is, you know,
right, kind of
interesting. Yeah, but you're right. He doesn't feel at ease with the position he finds himself in. You know, the professor explains it to him near the end. He's you know, the greatest contradiction in history, the Telmarine, you know, who has to save Narnia and persuade the Narnians to fight on his side before he can start to do that.
You speak very eloquently about it, and I read that you had actually read the books as a child and really loved the series. Did you ever imagine that you would grow up one day to be Prince Caspian?
No, not at all. I mean, I thought Caspian was, you know, 14 and blonde, you know, because I'd watched the BBC TV series and I'd read the books, and you know, and I read them again when I was in college, because children's literature was one of my modules that I studied, and you know, and then it's sort of...
Is it a dream come true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I was doing this play in London, and I did, you know, an audition, and then, you know, a month later I'm on a horse in New Zealand swinging a sword, and you know, not only is this sort of Hollywood dream come true in terms of acting in a sort of big movie on the scale, but also it's something from my childhood. I mean, it's perfect.
And you've already signed for the sequel?
Yes, we're starting to shoot that, I think, in October, November time.
Right, and only two of the kids will be back, right?
Yeah, the youngest two, which I think is really hard for William and Anna, you know. I mean, you know, they're 19 and 21, I think, respectively now, and they were sort of 13 and 14 when they first auditioned, so that's a lot of your childhood to give up to one story. Yeah. And but they, you know, they've got something fantastic to show for it now, and you know, I think they're really proud of it. And I was sitting next to Anna watching the movie last night, and she was really emotional at the end, and the scene we shot where Peter hands me his sword at the end, Rindon, he found that he was gripping onto that tight. He found that hard to kind of give up, but he took me aside that day and said, you know, I'm really glad I'm kind of handing this over to you, and you know, look after this for me. And you know, it was really, really sweet, very touching.
Yeah. All the girls want to know about the romance. You're poised to become the big summer heartthrob. Do you realize that?
I don't know about these, there's a few of them.
Well, Harrison Ford's kind of a little over the hill for most of the girls, you know.
Okay.
You share a kiss with Anna's Susan in the movie.
I do. And I share a kiss with Anna's Susan. I love that.
All right, with Susan.
Yeah.
Did you want to see more of that? I myself was yearning for more of that relationship.
There is a little bit more of it in the script that we shot, actually, so I'm sure it'll be on the deleted scenes. There's a few more sort of flirting scenes, but it just seemed a little bit incongruous. It didn't quite work as something that was kind of impulsive for her at the end. She kind of walks away from me and then thinks, you know what? Why not? Why not? I'm not coming back here. You know, this is something that it's a kind of spur of the moment. It's a sort of mark of what they've been through together. You know, he saved her once, she's, you know, helped him out.